Chapter 33. Myriad Baths. Zhang Xiaofan was momentarily stunned, recognizing the person in front of him, the beautiful girl who had argued about the sleepfish at dinner. She was still dressed in that set of watery green clothes, her skin as fair as snow under the moonlight, exquisite and unparalleled. Like a fairy, the girl placed the freshly picked flower to her nose, deeply inhaling, her face showing a blissful expression, radiating a breathtaking beauty, and in front of her lovely face, the flower seemed to shine even more brightly. However, from the depths of Zhang Xiaofan's heart, a nameless anger surged. He frowned and said, "This flower was blooming so nicely. Why did you pluck it?" The girl in green glanced at him, her eyes like rippling water, and said lightly, "I picked this flower. It's good fortune. Smelling its fragrance is its karma accumulated over 3 lifetimes. How could a commoner like you understand?" Zhang Xiaofan was dumbfounded, hearing such absurdity for the first time in his life. He shook his head and said, "By picking this flower, you've deprived it of life. How could it be happy?" The girl in green paused for a moment, then chuckled. Her laughter was like a burst of blooming flowers, stunning Zhang Xiaofan almost speechless. "Flower tears. Haha, flower tears? This is the first time I've heard a grown man call dewdrops flower tears. You crack me up. Double quotes. Zhang Xiaofan blushed, unable to find the words to respond, but seeing the girl's joyful smile, his face flushed with embarrassment, he forced himself to say, "So what?" Unexpectedly, the girl laughed even louder at his words, her crisp laughter echoing in the quiet and dim garden, adding a touch of warmth. Zhang Xiaofan felt frustrated, unable to express himself, but watching the girl's happy expression, he stomped his foot in annoyance and turned away. Just as he took a few steps, he suddenly heard the girl behind him stifle her laughter, though her tone still carried a hint of amusement. She said, "Hey, wait a moment." Zhang Xiaofan had been in a good mood when he came out tonight, but encountering this girl had ruined it. Now, hearing her call out to him, he felt irritated again. Unable to resist, he turned back and said, "I'm not. Hey, who are you calling?" The girl was taken aback for a moment, her smile disappearing from her face. She looked at Zhang Xiaofan with a hint of coldness, as if few people had ever dared to talk back to her like this. But after a moment, she seemed to think of something. Although she didn't return to her previous radiant smile, her tone remained gentle as she said, "Oh, then what's your name?" Zhang Xiaofan blurted out, "I single quotes and double quotes," but hesitated, grunted, and said, "Why should I tell you?" The girl in green's expression turned serious, seemingly annoyed, but seeing Zhang Xiaofan's defiant look, she couldn't help but chuckle again. This laugh completely dissipated the air of solemnity she had just displayed against the backdrop of moonlight and the fragrance of flowers. Her face filled with smiles, as if she knew it wasn't appropriate, shaking her head as if to restrain herself, but still couldn't help laughing. It was as if the innocence of long ago had returned tonight. The moonlight fell gently on her shoulders and face, reflecting her breathtaking beauty. Zhang Xiaofan didn't know when he became entranced. After laughing for a while, the girl noticed Zhang Xiaofan staring at her, chuckled, and surprisingly showed no signs of embarrassment like most young girls would. Instead, she asked directly, "Do I look good?" One has always said, "I'm pretty. You men are all the same." Listening to her tone, despite her young age, she seemed to have experienced a lot. Zhang Xiaofan was getting angry, about to retort, but when he inadvertently looked at her bright eyes and white teeth, standing alone in the moonlight, he vaguely felt a sense of familiarity. He suddenly remembered the beautiful figure of his senior sister he had seen by the Bixu pool on Qingyun Mountain. His enthusiasm waned, and he couldn't muster the energy anymore. After giving the girl a glance, he sighed softly, said nothing, turned around, and left. "Hey!" After walking a few steps, he heard a call from behind. Zhang Xiaofan frowned and turned around, looking at the girl in green. She squinted slightly, her lips pressed together as if pondering something, but the atmosphere suddenly became silent. "What's your name?" she asked in the same gentle tone, her eyes reflecting his figure. Zhang Xiaofan suddenly recoiled. The anger he had felt moments ago dissipated in an instant. It seemed inappropriate to be angry in front of this figure. Avoiding her soft gaze, feeling a bit uneasy himself, he muttered, Zhang Xiaofan. Then he walked away quickly, looking as if he were fleeing. He walked with his head down, almost reaching the corner of the winding path, when he suddenly noticed a black figure ahead. In the dim garden, it was hard to spot unless you got close. He almost couldn't stop himself in time, but thankfully his reflexes were quick. He stopped right in front of the person. In the darkness, a pair of bright yet quiet eyes appeared before him. They were too close, and Zhang Xiaofan was startled. He stepped back, finally seeing clearly. It was the masked woman who had sat beside the girl in green during dinner. She still had her veil on, but she had changed into a black silk dress. In the night, she seemed almost like a ghost. Zhang Xiaofan collected himself, still slightly out of breath. He caught a faint scent, unsure if it was from the garden or from being close to the girl earlier. His heart skipped a beat. He felt he had made a mistake coming out tonight. He muttered vaguely, sorry, and walked past the masked woman toward his lodging. From beginning to end, the masked woman hadn't said a word. She just stood there quietly, watching the young man. After Zhang Xiaofan passed by her, she turned slowly, watching his retreating figure. For a long time, almost blending into the darkness of the garden, she turned and walked towards the depths of the garden. Soon, she saw the girl in green, still standing where she had been, playing with a freshly picked flower in her hand. The girl in green raised her head, unsurprised. She smiled and said, "And you're back," glancing at the flower in her hand. The masked woman, known as Aunt Yu, nodded slightly under her veil. She said, "Those are from Qingyun Sect." Her voice echoed in the garden, deep and ethereal, soft yet carrying a hint of eerie awe. The leader is Chahao from Dragon Head Peak. I haven't seen the other three before. Seems to be from the younger generation. Don't know their names. The girl in green smiled faintly and said, I know one of them. The one who just passed by is called Zhang Xiaofan. What an earthy name. The masked woman glanced at her and said lightly, Biao, it's been a while since I've seen you enjoy the flowers. The girl in green, or Biao, seemed taken aback for a moment. Then, in the next moment, she smiled again, her beautiful face showing a smile. Yes, Aunt Yu, it's been a while. She picked up the flower and looked at it carefully. Then, under the gaze of the masked woman, Biao smiled, but decisively clenched her hand, crushing the beautiful flower into pieces.